Hello everyone and welcome to the first part in the SpriteKit tutorial series. And this is a series that will hopefully get you familiar with the new SpriteKit framework that came with Xcode 5. Today we're just going to learn the basics, we're going to introduce some terminology, and we're going to make a basic example to show you how, how the SpriteKit framework works in practice. If you're wondering what exactly the SpriteKit framework is, it's a framework that is made for making games. So Apple has really taken a great step in the indie game development direction. They made it much easier and better to make games using just Xcode without any other open source projects like Cocos 2D. So it's a really great framework, and I've been looking forward to this framework for a long time. I'm even just scratching the surface, but what I'm seeing so far is great. So without further ado, let's just get started, and we're gonna make a new project, make it a single view application. Project name is going to be SK Tutorial, SK for SpriteKit, and the devices, they're going to be for iPads. It's not because it won't work for the iPhone, but we're going to use the iPad for this example. I'm going to place it in some random folder. Yeah, and the first thing we want to do is to include the SpriteKit framework. Because if we don't include the framework, we can't really do anything about it, can we? So, go into the main storyboard file, and you see we have the view controller here with a UI view here. And make sure you select the UI view here by clicking like a maniac in here. And you can see that it says UI view here in the identity inspector up here. So, change this class to be an SKView class instead. Now, an SKView class, you'll see its uses in a bit, but it's essentially the UI view in the SpriteKit universe. Now, go into the viewcontroller.h file and go into the viewcontroller.m file. There we go. Now, up here, we will import the SpriteKit framework. Then in the view.load, we will configure a view, or configure an SK view to be exact, precise. Let me just change the text size for you. It might be a little small, sorry about that, I always forget to do it before I'm recording. 18, yeah, 20, right, there we go. Okay, so we need to configure the SK view that we just made in here, this SK view. And to do this, we are going to make it a variable, local variable. We're going to call it Sprite view, and it's an SK view. We are going to typecast it like this, self.view. So by saying self.view, and this is this view here, we're typecasting it as an SK view, so we're telling the compiler that this is not a UI view as you might expect, it's actually an SK view. Then we're storing it in the SK view variable Sprite view. Now, we can do some operations on it, and one thing is that we want to show the draw count, so set the shows draw count to yes, and we're going to say Sprite view shows node count yes as well, and Sprite view show FPS equals yes. So these are just some basic basic information for us as the developer, so we can see how our application is doing, how much it's drawing, how many nodes it has, and what FPS it's running with. Now we want to implement the view will appear, and this method will be called when this view is about to appear on the screen. And what we want to do then is to display a scene. Now what is a scene? Well, a scene is actually something we're going to be creating by saying new file. It's a class. So in the subclass we're going to say SKScene, because we're making an SKScene. We'll just call it Hello World Scene. Titles look alright, and there we go. This here, that's an SKScene. An SKScene is actually where we will draw our content. The scene is responsible for holding something we call nodes. And nodes is our content. A node can be a label and a button. So a node is a subview, and the scene is the parent of those subviews. So you add your subviews to the scene. So with that terminology out of the way, let's go in the hello world scene.m file. And what we want now is a private variable. You do this by saying add interface, and then the name of this class, and then empty parentheses, and then end it. So in here we can actually declare properties, and we're going to declare a bool called content created. And we are doing it in here instead of doing it in the .h file, the interface file, because it will be hidden, it will be private, so we can't really work with this content created variable outside of this class. Alright, so we want to make a method, or implement a method, called didMoveToView skView. And this method will be called whenever this scene is moving to a view. And what we want to do in this method is to start drawing our content. So this method will be created when we want to display it on this scene or on this view. So skView will need to display our SKScene in here. So we want to say if not content, sorry, self.content created. So if we haven't created our content yet, we want to do it by saying self create scene contents, like that. And then we want to set the self.content created to yes. And now we are making sure that we don't keep drawing our content if we just move views. You might have certain cases where you actually need to draw it each time, but we don't for this case, and it would be a waste of performance to do it. And now we want to implement this create scene contents method. Doesn't return anything. And what we want to do in here is to set up our scene. We are now making the scene to be displayed to the world. And we can do a lot of stuff. For instance, we could say self.background color equals skColor blue color. So we're making a blue background. Or we can make a green color. We can actually make any color that you can make in the UI color class. And that's actually because skColor is just another name for UI color or NS color if you are working making apps for Macs on the OS X system. And that's actually a great thing because this makes your code easily portable to other systems. So you can make this for the iOS devices, and then you can just copy paste this into the Mac OS operating systems, because the skColor would get the color appropriate for the current environment that the code is running in. So this is a very dynamic way of doing it, and it's a very great feature. So you should use skColor. Even though you could use UI color, skColor is more future-proof. And then we'll say self.scale mode equals to sk scene scale mode aspects fit, and this is a scaling mode, and we're making sure that the scene scales to fit the entire view. Then we want to say self at child self new hello node. Self add child self new hello node. Hello node, that's a method we're going to create ourselves, which will return an sk label node. So we can just get rid of the warning there. And add child, that is the same as adding a subview, but when we say child, we mean we're adding a node. You can also see we say new hello node. And a node is kind of like a view. Well, it is a view, but you will experience there's a lot of different names for familiar terms inside the SpriteKit framework. And you need to be careful not to mix these things together, because essentially they could be the same and the terminology is kind of the same. So it should ease your understanding of things, but just be careful not to start adding childs when you want to add subviews, and vice versa. So down here, new hello node, we want to make a new node. sk label node. Now that's the node for a label, a normal UI label. We'll call it hello node, and it will be an sk label node with font names, and we're going to make a cool font called Chalk Duster. Capital N right there. And now we can set some properties. We could say hello node.text equals hello world, and we could set a name for it, hello node, and the use for a name will be become clear in a second. Hello node.font size equals 52. Hello node.position equals cg.make cg_rect get mid-x, a great function of the cg_rect. And what it will do is that it will get the center value of an x in a passed-in rectangle, and we want that rectangle to be the frame of this scene. This, we're going to do the same thing here, get mid y self-frame. So by doing this, we are making sure that this text is placed exactly in the middle. And we want to return this node that we just created. Alright, well then we're actually done. This method here, did move to view, will say if we didn't create a view or draw our content, we want to do it. So we set a background color or a scale mode, and we add a child. The child is an sk label node. We make it right here. We set some properties and we return it to be added as a child. So this scene is actually all set up now. So we want to present it, and we want to do that when this sk view here gets presented. So in the view will appear, we want to display the scene, and in order to do that we need to import it. So import the hello world scene like that, and then make a variable hello world scene, calling it hello, of the hello world scene alloc, and init with size cg size make 768 times 1024, which is the iPad size points. And what we want to do then is to say skView. Oh, we actually have it down here. We make an skView variable of self.view, and then we can say SpriteView present scene hello, just like you would present a seed, for instance. So we create the hello world scene with a size, and the hello world scene was the scene we just created. Then we make the skView, which is self.view, which is this one, this entire area. And then we present the scene hello. So we present this one, which will trigger all these methods that we just wrote. Let's see this in action. So let's build and run this, and we should see hello world on a green background. And down here you can see that we have one node, we drew one time, and we have 60 frames per second. One node, the hello world, was an SK label node, so it's safe to assume that the only node we have is this one. We made one drawing call because this one will always ensure that we're only drawing one time, and we're running at 60 frames per second, which is pretty acceptable. And if you can make your games run at 60 frames per second at any time, you're a genius. So that's all very good, but it's a little boring. I mean, sure, we added a label, and we could have done that well a lot faster in storyboard here, just by dragging in a label. So let's just play around with some of the power of the SpriteKit framework. And one of the great powers is something called actions. And if we go into the hello world scene, we want to make it so that when you press the screen or the scene, we want the text to animate. So by doing that, we will override touches began with event, yes, this one. And you can also see here that since we can use touches began, it means that SK scenes are actually part of the responder chain, so we can respond to touches like any other view. So SK node hello node equals to self child node with name hello node. Oops. So we're making an SK node, calling it hello node, and we want this node to be the child node that's named hello node. And notice up here that we gave this node a name, and we did this so that we could always ask the scene to get us the child with this name, which is great, so we don't need to keep a reference to it all the time. We just ask the scene, well, I want this node with this name, so give it to me. And you can even have more nodes with the same name, so you can get them all. So also a great feature. We want to say that if hello node is not equal to nil, because we don't want to make these operations if this node doesn't exist, we will set the name to nil. And then we want to create the actions. Now SK actions are something that are performed on SK nodes, and actions are stuff that we tell the node to do. So we tell the node to perform certain actions, and we could specify an SK action object called move up to be SK action move by x 0 by 100 y with a duration of 5. So this will move the hello node, or whichever node we apply this action to, 0x and 100 y coordinates, and it will take half a second. And again, we could make an SK action called zoom. So SK action scale to 2.0 with a duration of 0.25. An SK action called pause. SK action wait for duration 0.5 sk action fade away equals sk action fade out with duration. So we're just adding a lot of different actions down here, and then sk action remove from parents. So we have a lot of different actions here. We have one that moves it up, another one that zooms by scaling it. We have a pause, and then we start to fade it away, and then we remove it. And we want these actions to be put in a sequence. So we make a new sk action object called the move sequence, and it's equal to sk action sequence, and it takes in an array. We just make it directly here, like this, with a trunk and a bracket, and then we can put all our sk actions in here. So move up, zoom, pause, fade away, remove, and then we are done. Now we want to run the action. So we tell hello node to run action move sequence. And that's actually it. So let's just see how this all looks. Okay, so we click the screen. Whoa! And it animates. Let's just do it again. Whip-to-do. It's great. And you can play around with these values and set them to all sorts of different stuff. I just want to quickly mention this move sequence. The order here is very important because it will perform all these sk actions in the order listed in this array here. So first it'll move up, it'll take half a second, then it will zoom, which will take a quarter second, then it will pause, doing nothing for a quarter second, then it will fade away, and then it will remove itself. And we remove it from the parent, so that's why we are very that's why we need this test, because if we didn't have this test, the program would crash, because we would tell the scene to get us a node named hello node, but we removed the node, so it doesn't exist. So yeah, I guess that's actually it for this tutorial. We made a scene. All this gray area, that's actually the scene, and behind the scene is the SK view, which is presenting our scene. We have a node here, a label node. We have some stats down here to show us what's going on, and if we press the screen, the node will animate and disappear. So this is it for the first tutorial. I hope you learned something, and I hope you're as excited about this new SpriteKit framework as I am. So play around with these actions, and perhaps look in the documentation for other actions that you might want to perform on this this label here. Maybe add some other labels and do actions on specific ones by referring to them using the hello name by the name property, so that, for instance, when you press the screen, 3 different labels are going to do 3 different actions. So, well, thanks for watching, guys, and please subscribe if you like it, visit the forum if you have any questions at all. The link is in the description, and you can ask me questions, and hopefully I can answer them. Yeah. Alright, I guess I'll see you guys next time.